Hi, this is Module 12, Continuous Improvement and Learning. I'm Dr. Prabhakar Gantasala, Associate Dean at the School of Business, Southern Connecticut State University. We're discussing continuous improvement and learning as part of agile leadership during uncertain times. That's the micro credential that you will be earning at the end of taking all the 15 modules. This module focuses specific to continuous improvement and learning that is so integral to what an agile leader must be doing to make sure that organizations are innovative, they have continuous learning, and they can become sustainable, have competitive advantage, and become resilient. Foundations of continuous improvement. The core principles that support continuous improvement are we are all aware that incremental progress or radical change is valued. So that's continuous improvement as improvement being part of every day's routine. Everyone's involvement is appreciated in continuous improvement processes. And it's also process focused thinking, not just focused on what individuals do, but how process help make those kind of incremental improvements at the organizational level. The historical context of continuous improvement comes from the evolution of total quality management and how those practices and principles have been put in place during modern management practices. Now, continuous improvement, the Gemba walk, go to the workplace where the work is actually being done, standardization, visual management, teamwork, involve employees, eliminate waste, improve quality, makes jobs safer. All these are essentially what modern practices have borrowed from total quality management. As a classical case of continuous improvement, we have already discussed in prior modules the case study of Toyota's continuous improvement culture. They have daily Kaizen practices like eliminating waste, under which they remove tasks, activities, or expenses that don't add value to customers. They also discuss about continuous monitoring and feedback as being integral to Kaizen practices, regularly monitoring processes and providing feedback to improving them. That's part of Kaizen that Toyota embraces. And it also focuses on encouraging idea generation, creating an environment where employees feel comfortable, they feel responsible, and they want to share ideas for improvement. It also empowers employees and it gives the employees the tools and the competences, and employees feel comfortable and with the authority to make changes that improve efficiency as well as quality. So Toyota does that towards implementing Kaizen and continuous improvement cultures. And a classical outcome is the just-in-time management with their inventory control. And it also is reflective of the leader standard work implementation that Toyota actually uses at their workplace. We can also look at continuous improvement from the power of retrospectives. There are two different types of retrospectives that we might want to discuss here. The first one is called sprint retrospectives, a meeting that takes place at the end of each sprint to reflect on what went well and what could be improved for the next sprint. This is like how actually teams could go from one sprint to another sprint. It could be different phases, all the way from ideation phase to commercial production and marketing phase. Or there could be another way of looking at the continuous improvement opportunities using the project retrospectives. Now, the project retrospectives is a meeting or workshop where team members come together, they reflect on completed projects, they analyze the data from a completed project, the challenges faced in a completed project, and the points of learning that actually these teams can work on from previous projects, look at what they have been successful at, and also point towards points of failure and points of improvement that they can utilize for future projects. And the third way of looking at retrospectives or continuous improvement opportunities, operational reviews. So when you have members of your team operationalizing a particular idea, putting it into practice, or creating prototypes, generating proof of concept, making iterative improvements, you want these members to come back and report back their reviews of what challenges that they face, what areas were they really successful, what challenges could be overcome, and what are the points of learning moving forward in future projects that can be implemented. The key elements are safety and trust building through these exercises. It's all data driven discussions, and it's also action oriented so that we learn from the past and we make sure we implement these changes in future projects. A classical example that I've already discussed in one of the prior modules is Spotify's squad health check model. So there's plenty of examples at Spotify which uses team retrospective innovations. They use certain measurement frameworks. They use certain problems so that teams can identify these problems and anticipate solutions to fix those problems even before they happen. So this is a classical example of how teams learn and how to do their retrospect and look at points of success and points of failure and what learning can they take moving forward to implementing future projects themselves. Effective retrospective facilitation is possible by start, stop, continue framework, or also mad sad glad exercise. It's a go-to strategy many teams use after a sprint has been completed to take a collaborative collective emotional temperature check of team members. It's a focused way to encourage team members to express how they feel about their work and address any concerns or highlights they experienced during the sprint, and if they felt mad about it, what got them excited. If they felt sad something was not working, why did they not feel good about it. If something was going bad, they can point those things out. If they felt glad it worked, what's the point of relief that they had? What kind of challenges did they face? And how did they overcome? And why did they feel at the end of it was worth the pain that they took? And why are they feeling glad at this point of time? So, this is another retrospective facilitation tool that agile leaders can use to learn from project implementation and make those incremental changes for continuous improvement of projects that are going to be implemented in the future. There's a third thing that can work as a facilitation technique is the five whys analysis. The five whys analysis is a problem solving technique where you repeatedly ask the question why about a problem, and progressively you drill down to identify the root cause by asking the question at least 5 times. With each why, you go in depth into figuring out the cause and effect relationship of why there was a problem, what's causing the problem, whether they're direct causes or indirect causes. And by addressing those whys, the answers from the previous question, you actually drill deeper towards getting the actual cause of a problem. Now, common pitfalls of trying to do a retrospective analysis is you need to avoid blame games. It's easy for human beings, employees, stakeholders to blame one another. As an agile leader, you have to help people understand, stakeholders understand, employees understand, to avoid blame games. You got to manage as an agile leader, manage those dominant voices, give an opportunity for everybody to have a say in their retrospective analysis. You got to also prevent action item overload, just in case you don't want to chew more than what you can actually swallow. And the case study that actually helps understand this particular approach is the Google's project called Aristotle. It's an interesting project, a study that analyzed what makes teams very successful. And one of the important elements that they actually discovered from a project that began in 2012 and that took into consideration 180 Google teams over a period of 2 year period, they figured out there are certain things that are very integral, important for making retrospective analysis a success. And what are the major findings of Project Aristotle? The first one is obviously that's listed here, which is called psychological safety emphasis. The most important factor for a high performing team that we discussed in another module is the psychological safety. It's a belief that the team members can express themselves freely without a sense of fear, without feeling negative consequences. And that's a very important aspect to making a high performance work team work at that level in a sustainable way. The second one is the communication aspect of it, a key component of every successful team. Transparent, open communication, which we discussed in a prior module, is essential for building and keeping a cohesive team together to be able to perform at the highest level. Structure and clarity, again, for any team, they found is very important. Teams need clear roles, they need clearly defined goals, and also plans that they would work on. Meaning of work itself, the type of nature of work, which will make them inspired, which makes them feel special. That's very important. Team members need to understand the purpose of their work, have a clear sense of purpose. That actually is pretty motivating. And they also understand other team effectiveness metrics like impact. Team members would want to understand how their efforts contribute to team success, to an organization's success, and that kind of line of sight is pretty inspirational for teams. And that's the classical example of Google's case study that is being discussed here. Now, I'm actually talked about Kaizen principles. It's not a bad idea that I can revisit some of the principles here. So, small improvement focus is there as a part of daily Kaizen implementation. Kaizen also talks about visual management system, developing standard work processes, going to the actual workplace. As a leader, you have to walk to the place where the actual work is being done. That's called the Gemba walks. And support and enablement, you have to empower your employees in the way that they need to be empowered, give them the kind of skill sets, competences, resources to help them succeed on their jobs. That's an extremely important aspect of every agile leader's responsibility, including provide them with the resources. Now, we're also interested in figuring out other ways of looking at continuous improvement. One very important framework is the learning organization framework. Now, Peter Senge talks about the learning organization framework in his book, Five Disciplines. The fifth discipline, actually, and the five disciplines are personal mastery, mental model, shared vision, team learning, and systems thinking. So, if you go from the first thing, personal mastery, agile leaders have to emphasize to every individual that learning can be possible through personal mastery. So if you were to take me as an example, and if I have to become good at something, I need personal mastery to practice, to be able to do something repetitively and do it easily and do it with a sense of expertise. I think I need personal mastery. Mental models, the sense of self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability, whether it's at the individual level or the team level, I think those mental models are extremely important. Creating positive mental models, creating positive belief systems and values is very integral to a learning organization. Shared vision as an agile leader, as a transformative leader, you want to have a vision that everybody becomes a part of, engaging every stakeholder, getting their input, finding out their inclinations, their capacities, and the level of engagement into those activities, which bring them a sense of fulfillment, is what should drive the vision that you bring to the table. And that vision, when it is shared across the entire organization, the energy is intense, the capacity to create a change is very strong, and it's driven by a culture appreciation of the shared vision. Team learning, we have talked a lot about the importance of collaboration, the importance of synergy and communication within an organizational context. And so team learning is essential for learning organizations. In teams, we are synergistic, we generate more ideas, we look at different perspectives, and we are able to resolve problems in a more creative, more innovative way. Systems thinking, Peter Senge also talks about how organizations are comprised of systems and subsystems that are interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. So changes introduced into one subsystem, like say the human subsystem, can create a change in other subsystems in the organization, like the cultural subsystem, other subsystems. Any change in technology subsystem can have an impact on human subsystem and all kinds of cultural subsystems as well. So obviously, if you view organizations as subsystems and how they interact, an agile leader has a better sense of understanding how to introduce a change, where to introduce it, how to face in change, how to get the buy-in, how to overcome resistance to change, and how to create innovative ways of doing things. Implementing stuff so that you can get a learning organization up and running is by creating knowledge sharing platforms. It's most of the cases you will have organizations that have a culture of hoarding knowledge, keeping knowledge, being unwilling to share knowledge. So, as an agile leader, you have to create a culture within the company where employees want to use knowledge sharing platforms, are willing to share knowledge, share great practices, and create those communities of practice where individuals and teams can come together and talk about best practices in that particular field. A classical example of a learning organization is Microsoft's learning culture. They have so much of emphasis on growth mindset, adoption. I've discussed Microsoft's case in another module in great depth, and they've created learning and development programs across that cut across the entire organization. And that's why they have an organization that's driven by the concept of learning. Now, integral to continuous improvement and building learning organization is the feedback loops and systems that you want to create as an agile leader. The types of feedback that individuals value, that teams value, and to also provide system feedback so that everybody appreciates and understands the system's thinking. Feedback collection methods, there were several methods that we discussed earlier. Some of them are listed here, the 360-degree feedback, collecting feedback from all stakeholders, including customers, suppliers, vendors, other stakeholders like investors, also going to regulatory authorities and getting feedback from them as well. So feedback from an all-round perspective can only help us learn from our mistakes, understand our own strengths, and make those continuous improvement strides in the right direction. Pulse surveys to understand the sentiment, the emotions, and the kind of sense of belongingness amongst employees or the sense of loyalty among customers. Those are very important performance metrics, whether it's production, logistics, all kinds of metrics in terms of financial accounting and data analysis. All those metrics can be collected to let us know if we are on the right track. So building these feedback loops and systems, all at the individual team or system level, is integral to supporting continuous improvement within the organization, building learning organizations that are all primed to react in a rapid way and can adapt quickly in an uncertain business environment. How do you measure improvement when you're building a continuous learning organization or continuous improvement opportunities? How do you measure improvement? Now, the key metrics which we have referred to in prior modules as well, like say measuring process efficiency. Are we able to do stuff quickly, on time, and deliver high quality services as well? What's the level of employee engagement? Once we have made those changes and improvement, has employee engagement increased? Have customers been more happier? Have we been able to retain old customers? What's the kind of reputational capital that we create? What's the brand image that we have among customers' mind and also in the general public's mind? Measurement tools, you could use plenty of statistical process controlled techniques to measure quality. And then, of course, you can use other statistical tools to measure employee engagement, customer satisfaction. So you could also create improvement tracking systems and a dashboard to see where process improvements have resulted in substantial improvements, whether it's in production, whether it's in packaging, whether it's in logistics, outbound logistics, whether it's in after sales service, complaint response time, and stakeholder engagement response time. You could have plenty of improvement tracking systems inbuilt into an enterprise resource planning system, and to see if all the changes that an agile leader is bringing is making substantial progress for the organization. We're also going to talk about here personal development planning, because individual growth is important, right from skill assessment, creating training and competence building opportunities, building development roadmaps for individuals as well. That's very important for individuals to know that they have been taken care of, that they have the support in terms of training, in terms of competency building, in creating pathways for the future, in terms of career progression, leadership development, technical advancement. Every individual wants to be recognized. Every individual wants an opportunity to do better. And by creating those opportunities, you can only help creating those kind of learning organizations where personal mastery is valued. And in doing so, you're building a culture of innovation. You're building a culture of continuous improvement. We're also interested in team learning dynamics because we know that teams are building blocks of any successful organization. So as an agile leader would like to know how to create inbuilt learning opportunities within teams. How do you do that? Collaborative learning, pair programming, knowledge sharing sessions, cross training between two different teams. Team development can be possible by skill matrix mapping to figure out who has complementary skills to put the right set of people in the right teams. Also send team members for training, both on the job and off the job, to build capabilities and capacity. Innovation framework, encouraging team members to generate ideas, help them understand the importance of experimentation, also communicate to them risk tolerance, and also learning from failure as a way of doing it. but also measure and take moderate amount of risk. It is safe to fail environment. There's a sense of psychological safety. There is risk management, maintenance of risk registry, and also providing them with the information to understand the nature of risk and how to mitigate these risks. Again, an example that we have discussed across several modules is 3M's innovation program, where 15% time policy from 3M allows 15% of time for employees to work on innovation projects, very, very innovative projects. And 3M also offers them resources as well. And 3M uses innovation metrics to see if all that effort is resulting into new product development and new patents. And 3M, as a classical example, has hundreds and thousands of new product patents. I would also discuss certain additional resources which talk about continuous improvement, Kaizen, learning organization, the books that we refer to, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, a great book, Toyota Kata by Mike Rother, great book, Learning Organizations by Harvard Business Review, a great read. Certain videos that I would strongly recommend you to watch: The Learning Organization by Peter Senge, Introduction to Kaizen by Masaki Mai, Building a Learning Organization, a LinkedIn learning tool if you have access to. All great places to search for additional information. And I'm sure if you did all the things that we've discussed till date, as an agile leader, you will be successful in building an organization that values continuous learning, that is based on a learning approach, and through which individuals, teams learn, continuously innovate, and stay competitively sustainable and resilient at the same time. Thank you.